So let's say you're a beginner 3D printer enthusiast, you have kids who like to 3D print, or you just want to design things on the computer and you find it interesting. To do any of those things, you're going to need a CAD program or a computer-aided design program. So picking out a CAD program can seem pretty daunting because there's probably a million programs depending on what you want to design. So if you're designing a camera, you're going to be using an electrical engineering program with a bunch of other software. And if you're just designing something like me, like a solid object on a 3D printer, you really don't need all those features. So the programs vary wildly, and they also vary wildly in cost. For the majority of us who are wanting to 3D print or design solid objects, we're going to want a solid modeling CAD program. So the more basic programs mimic the more advanced programs in that you're using smaller shapes to create more complex shapes. And that's, I guess, the gist of CAD programs. However, once you get into the more advanced programs, then there's a lot more features, and you get into add-ons where you have electrical engineering, flow dynamics, simulation, and a bunch of other stuff that really isn't necessary in the beginner programs or for people like us who are just 3D printing. So to be simple, I'm just going to focus on the programs that I used mostly for 3D printing, and they go from beginner to advanced. Advanced programs I use now have a lot of features that aren't necessarily required for 3D printing, but it's fun to mess around with, and you can even get certified in some of the programs if you choose to, and it gives you a head start if you want to go into something like engineering, and it's also just really cool to have the experience. I outlined some of the programs I used when I first started 3D printing, and all the way up till now. I'm 17, so I started when I was around 11, and so it's been about a 6-year process, and I've jumped through many programs, but I picked the top 3 that I thought were the best from most basic to most advanced. So I hope you guys enjoy. So the first CAD program I used was TinkerCAD. It's a free, super simple CAD program offered by Autodesk online. So it's cloud-based, and that means that you can look on any search engine and sign up for free and start designing immediately. It's really easy, and it doesn't require a download. So many programs will require a big download for your computer, but this you can run on any search engine, I think, and it's super helpful because of that. Basically the principle is using smaller shapes or single shapes to create a more complex shape, which is similar to, I guess, more advanced CAD programs, and it's also super friendly for 3D printing. So you can export STL files, which is used for 3D printing, and that's super helpful and one of the great things about TinkerCAD. So once I was confident with TinkerCAD, I moved on to Fusion 360, which is another CAD program made by Autodesk. It mimics the layout of a more professional program like Solidworks or CATIA, but it's still super easy to learn, and I think I learned it when I was 12 with the help of online tutorials. And another great thing about Fusion is that it's free for students and teachers. A lot of more professional programs that are offered to students are discounted, but still not free. If you want an actual license, that's not too expensive either. Fusion does require a download, but is collaborative so that you can work on designs with others. And since Autodesk makes so many programs, designs in Fusion can be used in rendering, simulation, or 3D printing programs, all made by Autodesk. And finally, Solidworks. That's my preference for programs. It's a professional program used for many industrial applications, but I can't elaborate too much on its features because it'd probably take me days to list all of them. But it's basically a much more advanced version or professional version of Fusion 360, and it uses the same principles of designing, but it's basically meant for designing rockets by comparison. And I'm by no means a master of the program, but it wasn't a huge jump from Fusion 360 to SolidWorks, and I think I learned it when I was about around 15, so it definitely wasn't too hard. And because it's more expensive, there is a higher price. So if you're a student and teacher, you can get it for around $100 with some caveats. Number 1, you cannot produce commercial products through the student license. And number 2, sometimes people with legitimate SolidWorks licenses can't alter files due to the student license. And number 3, you'll have to have a Windows computer, and Macs will not work. It'll also have to be a pretty beefy computer because SolidWorks is a huge program. And if you want a normal license, it's upward of $5,000. So I'd stick to the student version.